There's a popular idea about ancient empires that before modern technology, states had a natural size limit. Once an empire expanded beyond that limit, it would fragment, decentralize, or collapse. The Roman Empire split in two, the Mongol Empire fractured, Alexander the Great's empire vanished almost overnight, and Tang China fell into regional warlordism. So here's the real question. Was there really a hard limit on empire size? And if so, does that explain the fall of the Qing dynasty? Part 1. What actually limited pre-modern empires? Ancient states were not limited by ambition, they were limited by coordination. Before railroads, telegraphs, or modern bureaucracies, power moved at human speed. Messages travelled by horse, boat, or bird. Officials ruled vast territories, with incomplete information, delayed orders, and limited oversight. But distance alone was not the problem. The real constraint was this: how much authority a state could delegate without losing control. Part 2. Delegation. The necessary risk. To survive, large empires had to decentralize. Rome divided authority between emperors, generals, and governors. Tang China empowered military governors to defend distant borders. These were rational solutions to immediate military and administrative problems. But delegation carried risks. Local officials controlled troops, collected taxes, and built personal loyalty networks. Over time, regional power became harder and harder to reverse. Fragmentation wasn't just a failure of leadership, it was the long-term cost of governing too much space with limited tools of enforcement. Part 3. Why distance was only one constraint. Distance was never the only pressure. Pre-modern empires also faced elite incentives. Local rulers often benefited more from autonomy than loyalty. Fiscal limits. Taxation systems were inefficient and easily resisted. Ecological constraints, droughts, floods, and frontier logistics shaped stability. Legitimacy problems. Conquest often outpaced cultural or ideological integration. Military economics. Armies are a drain on resources. Food, clothes, and weapons all have to come from somewhere, and the bigger the army, the bigger the drain. Communication limits amplified these problems, but they did not create them alone. Part 4. The agrarian trap. For agrarian empires, the problem was sharper. Revenue came from peasants and land. Armies depended on local food supplies. Administration scaled poorly. Once expansion passed the core agricultural regions, the state often spent more to control territory than the territory could reliably return. At that point, empire stopped being an asset and became a liability. This wasn't inevitable collapse, but it made stability fragile. Part 5. What about the Qing? And this is where the theory reaches its limits. It does not explain the fall of the Qing dynasty. By the late Qing period, the world had changed. Industrial production existed, steamships and railways appeared. Global trade networks reshaped power. The Qing state did not collapse because it governed too much territory. It collapsed because its political institutions could not adapt to a fundamentally new environment. The threat was no longer distance, it was modernity. Part 6. Two eras, two different failures. So, we are dealing with two different historical logics. Pre-modern empires struggled with scale, distance, elite control, and fiscal limits. Modern states struggle with reform, legitimacy, and institutional adaptation. Rome and Tang China fragmented because their systems exceeded their management capacity. The Qing dynasty fell because its systems failed to transform. Ancient empires were not doomed by size alone. They fell when political, economic, and administrative systems could no longer absorb the pressures they created. And modern states survive not because they are larger, but because they adapt faster. History is not ruled by fate, it is ruled by systems, and the limits those systems carry.